Hello everyone, again, and I say again as I already made this video and uploaded it some hour and a half ago, but similarly like I think a week ago or 10 days ago my image got stuck and you could only hear me but you couldn't see anything. I have no idea why this happens. Again, might be an update in the camera drivers or something, but this time I decided to repeat the video as it's really an insane game and I would hate for you to miss it. So let's just check out, we have a nice photo, there we have it. It's not actually a photo, it's just a still image from the live feed, but there you have it, Carlsen versus Mamedyarov. And before we check out the game, I would just like to mention that Mamedyarov is the last person to beat Magnus Carlsen in classical time control. It happened last year in the Bill Chess Festival, so it will be interesting to see what Carlsen chooses to play against Mamedyarov here, and can Mamedyarov again end Carlsen's streak, which I believe is now over 70 games undefeated. So Mamedyarov opens with white, he plays knight to f3, we have the Reti, sorry about that. We have knight to f6 by Mamedyarov, c4, we have g6 preparing to fianchetto the dark square bishop, knight to c3, and now d5, a nice strike in the center. We have c captures, knight captures, and here there are a couple of moves, I mean more than a couple of moves you could play. Queen a4 is the main line here, deliver check. You could play e4, go into a sort of a Grunfeld-like structure, but here Carlsen goes h4, inspired by some all the AlphaZero's game-changing advices. You want to start attacking from the beginning, as black already gave you a target. So here we have knight captures on c3, b captures, and bishop to g7, just continuing development normally, and h5 here. Carlsen, of course, does not want to capture on g6 as long as this rook is still on h8, so Carlsen will wait for black to castle. And this isn't a new position or anything, it has been played before. c5 is the main move here, and Mamedyarov plays it. We have rook to b1 by Carlsen, hindering the development of the light square bishop here. And here, well, you could try something like knight c6 or some other move that were played before. b6 is a new move, and already from move 8 we have a completely new game. So very exciting. With e4 by Carlsen, and now comes castles by Mamedyarov. And now that Mamedyarov castled, Carlsen is ready to capture on g6. With h captures, and now d4. Just developing in the center, and it's like in the Grunfeld, you want to fight for the d4 square. And here Mamedyarov has to decide whether he wants to go bishop g4 or bishop b7. As he already played b6, he decided to develop his bishop this way, and now knight to g5. Really an interesting idea. Carlsen already has some checkmating plans. He wants to go queen g4, queen h4, deliver checkmate on h7, and Mamedyarov captures on d4. He allows this, and now Carlsen goes queen to g4. There was some talk that bishop to c4 was already giving white the winning advantage, but it's without actually preparing this, it's really hard to see. There are some ideas like queen to c7. Kasparov mentioned it during the interview, that you have queen to b3, just powering up the attack against the f7 square, and then you can also go bishop to a3, and it will supposedly be just overwhelming for black to hold this. But Carlsen plays queen to g4, which is interesting. It means that even though he chose such a wild line, he did not prepare it at home. He just plays it by instinct. So the idea is queen h4 followed by queen to h7 mate, with knight to d7, preparing knight to f6. From f6 the knight will cover the h7 square, although there is another way you could defend. Queen c8, it's a more adventurous way to defend, and then after queen h4 just rook c8, you invite queen to h7, as your king will be safe on f8. But like I said, maybe a bit too adventurous for Mamedyarov. He goes after queen to g4, he goes knight to d7, with queen to h3, not queen to h4. Some of you may already have heard this in the previous video. I don't know why queen to h3 is better than queen to h4. To me, queen to h4 seems like a more natural move, still keeping an eye on this pawn here. Again, threatening checkmate, so it's the same. But from here, I don't know why queen to h3 is better. If any of you have some sort of an idea, of course, do share. With knight to f6, you want to defend the h7 square, and now Carlsen has to decide whether he wants to go knight h7, which is very nice, as you're threatening to capture the knight with check and deliver mate on h7. So black would have to go knight h5, you would win the exchange here, but black would have very nice compensation for the exchange, the strong bishop pair, the knight on h5 prevents white from doing any attacks. The bishop just excellent defending piece, and Carlsen's king still stuck on e1. Black is to be preferred here. So after knight to f6, Magnus continues with his caveman approach, or some call it the barbarian approach, as you just keep on attacking and you don't care about anything else. e5. Of course, if you move the knight to a ridiculous square, queen h7 is checkmate, so you have to play knight to h5. And now Carlsen plays a very interesting move, but first we should explore a move like g4. g4, really an awesome line. Of course, now you expose your rook to attack, but the idea how black defends is queen to d5. Going for this queen captures an e5 check. And now after you capture the knight, you get queen e5 check, bishop to e2 blocking, and now d3, and now you force the white queen to capture if you don't want to get checkmated. Queen captures, you get bishop captures on h1 now, and after h captures on g6, you get queen captures on c3. Now force a queen trade. King f1, you get queen captures on d3, g captures on f7 first, black will even capture with the rook, bishop captures on d3, and now not capturing the, not moving the rook, as you don't want to allow bishop to c4, black just controls this diagonal, bishop to d5, and here after captures and captures, we get this endgame where both players have a bishop pair and a rook, but Mamedyarov is up a pawn. So, and that's with perfect attack from white, so doesn't really work. Here Carlsen continues with the caveman approach. We have e6, and here again it's one of those positions where it's not only okay to play f6, but f6 is in fact the best move here. But again, it's always hard to decide whether to play f6 or not, because everyone has, you know, bad memories of when they played f6 and then they lost terribly. But here f6 actually works. Here white would ignore you, bishop to d3, you go after g6, and then after captures you will capture here, attacking the knight. Then you get rook to f6, which is very important, as you always need this rook to h6 threat after the bishop captures on h5, and now queen to d5. And you have so many threats. This is a threat, this is a threat. You can check king along the e file. And even bishop to f7 is no problem, as the dark square bishop does a wonderful job of defending, and now there are just so many threats. Rook h6, queen captures here, queen can deliver checks, like we said, queen captures on a2, and black would just be much better here. So after e6, Mamedyarov misses f6, unfortunately for him, and queen to d5 is played. Now he wants to harass Carlsen's king along the e file. We have e captures on f7. Magnus now takes this opportunity, as Mamedyarov failed to play f6, to grab some material. We have rook captures on f7, and now not capturing on f7 immediately, because here this is met with king captures, and you don't have a good way of continuing your attack. So Mamedyarov would be very happy to go this exchange down. Even something like rook b5 seems like a nice continuation. Bishop nicely guards the rook. Queen e4 check, and after bishop to e2, okay, you go knight f4, attack the queen, the bishop. It's just a very nice position for black. So after bishop to d3, we have queen to e5 check by Mamedyarov. It is the strongest move. And now again, really exciting, whether you go king to d1 or king to f1. If you go king to f1, it doesn't work. Now you get knight g3 check, and well, the f pawn is pinned, you cannot capture, and you just fall apart here. King g1, you will go queen e1 check, king h2, you're going to play queen captures on h1, and after this trade here, you can just go rook c8, again control the c4 square, you don't want to allow bishop c4, and you don't really mind this. Here knight captures on f7, rook captures on c3 even, as both this bishop and this bishop is guarded, but after rook b3, which is best, just rook captures on c1. And after white moves, you will get rook g1 check. It will be very hard to keep playing this. Black is just winning here. So, of course, Carlsen did not go king f1, he went king to d1, and now we have d captures on c3. Mamedyarov prepares c2 check, as he wants to free this diagonal for the queen and the bishop, and of course for the attack that will follow. Carlsen takes this opportunity to finally grab the exchange. Knight captures on f7, we have king captures on f7, and already this is move 19, and Carlsen is down already to 19 minutes on the clock. So this is how much he's putting into this game, which is just insane. Here, again, what do you play here? You could play something like queen e3, you could offer a queen trade, you could play rook b5, go after Mamedyarov's queen. Let's say you try queen e3, then you get queen d5, and again black with threats all over the board. Rook b3 defending. Now you get bishop to h6. You try to get the queen away from the defense of this bishop here, and after queen e2, now you just trade. Bishop captures. You will put an in-between move, rook b5, as the queen also now guards the a2 pawn. So after c2 check, you will capture the bishop, and now knight f4 comes. Black just has a very, very interesting position, and it's well, it's hard to decide on this. Carlsen instead goes rook to e1. He says the attack on the king side is over. There's no getting over the dark square bishop. It's time to switch to the center, and I am up material, well, sort of, so why not mix it up by exchanging queens and playing an endgame. We have c2 check by Mamedyarov, by far the best move. Like we said, you want to open lines in front of Magnus king. Bishop captures, and now of course rook to d8 check, bringing your last rook into the game, and only rook and bishop to d2 now. Here you have to see what's happening here. Is Magnus just lost here? He has a king on d1, and Mamedyarov has this position full of attacking potential. Nice rook here, nice bishop pair, queen nicely centralized. Well, of course you will have to move it. So what do you play here? Here Mamedyarov plays queen to d6. It's very nice as it guards the e6 square. You don't want to allow this check, but also threatens queen captures on d2 checkmate. So of course now Magnus has to go queen to e3, and now knight to f4. Of course you cannot capture, even though you're attacking the knight twice. The bishop is still pinned, so you just blunder your queen. We have king to c1 by Magnus, unpinning, and here do you capture on g2 and attack the queen and the rook? It's a really nice line. That if Shah played this, Magnus would have to find bishop to b4 and just trade queens here. After knight captures, bishop captures, you would have rook captures on d6, and now f captures on e3. And Magnus would be up the exchange, but Mamedyarov up 2 pawns. A nice trade-off, but probably black to be preferred here, with the bishop pair, of course. So instead, after king to c1, Mamedyarov doesn't like his chances here. He still wants the full point, as Magnus is getting really low on time. After bishop to h6, you align your bishop with the queen and with the king on this diagonal. It's really looking beautiful, and Magnus only 7 minutes on the clock here, Shah full 30 minutes. So we have king to b2 by Magnus here, which is very nice. If you try and prevent knight d3 by playing something like rook b3, then knight to e2 check is a problem. Now you have to capture with the queen, as there is an open attack from the bishop. Queen captures, now bishop captures on d2 with check, and here black would win back material. Bishop captures here, and queen captures on e1. Again, black is up a pawn, and well, we could say that black's king is a bit safer than white's king. So Carlsen does not go for rook b3. He goes king to b2. Trying to get his king to a much safer square. Also now, if bishop g7 is repeated, you can respond with bishop to c3. But it's very interesting. Mamedyarov did not repeat, even though he might just try and see if Carlsen will be interested in a draw. Not because Mamedyarov wants a draw, but sometimes you just, want to check how white is feeling. But Mamedyarov continues the attack with rook to c8, and now Carlsen has to decide, rook c1 or rook a d1. Carlsen decides for rook to c1, even though rook a d1 probably was a little bit better, as knight to d3 will not come with an attack against the king and the rook, and it also wouldn't work. Here, knight to d3 would actually be very nice for Mamedyarov, but it forces a lot of things. For example, queen captures, you get bishop captures on d2, and now you cannot capture the bishop, as your queen would be unguarded. So first you play rook captures on e7, a nice in-between move, and after king captures, now you capture, and rook cd1 traps the bishop. But still, after bishop captures, you will capture here with check. You get this position, bishops of the same color. Mamedyarov still up a pawn, not interested in going for this ending. Mamedyarov wants to win, so he plays e6. He says, you're low on time, I just don't want to constantly calculate bishop to b3 check. It's really annoying, so you play something here. Carlsen plays king back to b1. Now he doesn't even allow bishop to g7 to come with check. And now bishop captures on g2. Mamedyarov grabs another pawn. And now comes bishop to b3. It's a nice idea, but here in, well, sort of a severe time trouble, Magnus missed bishop captures on g6. Although it is better, it's hard to assess with little time on the clock that it's actually better. Because yes, you do win the bishop here. I mean, it's a trade-off, but then after queen d3 check, king b2, queen d4 check, you need to see that you're okay here. and that black will not be able to finish the job here, you're going to go rook ec1, and white's position is very nice here. Carlsen did not go for this. Carlsen played bishop to b3, places a third attacker towards the e6 pawn, and now comes rook captures on c1. Mamedyarov goes for some trades. We have bishop captures. Of course, you don't want to move the rook. You want to keep the pressure along the e-file. And now bishop to h3. Mamedyarov brings yet another defender to the e6 pawn. Bishop to b2. Now you want your bishop on such a beautiful diagonal. And of course, Mamedyarov doesn't like that. So here, before bishop g7, he goes bishop f5 check with king to a1. And only now bishop to g7, where he is sure that he will be able to trade these dark square bishops with check. So Carlsen trades first with bishop captures, king captures, and again, what do you do here? Rook h1, not all that impressive. King will have a very safe square on f6, as you no longer have a dark square bishop. Any queen c3 check will be met with queen e5, of course, after the king goes to f6. So black is safe here. Here, Carlsen goes rook ad1, rook ed1. Attacks the queen, and now we have knight to d3. And here Mamedyarov has some very nasty tricks up his sleeve. He can go something like queen d8 followed by queen f6 check, and as the knight covers b2, queen b2 will be checkmate. For example, if Magnus tried something like bishop captures here, with the idea of trying to remove the defender of the knight here, just queen d8 and you are lost. Queen f6 check will be deadly. And you cannot block with the queen. This is covered by the knight, and this is covered by the black queen. So we have bishop to c4. Carlsen, in severe time trouble, finds the absolute best move. Now threatens to win material here, and now you have to trade queens. Queen e5 check, as the knight now controls the e5 square. Queen captures on e5, knight captures on e5, and now bishop to e2. And here we enter the endgame, where Magnus has only 30 seconds on the clock, and Mamedyarov has some 3 minutes and 40 seconds, so quite more time than Magnus, but shouldn't be a problem for Magnus, as he is the, well, basically the unofficial world champion in bullets. Winning all those Lichess titled arenas really must be paying off, I guess, in severe time troubles. So g4. The bishop is very nicely placed here, controls the knight. You all know this famous, well, relationship between a bishop and the knight. And if the king decides to come into the game, you can always play rook to d4 and cut the king off from the 4th rank. But, you know, 30 seconds on the clock. Magnus wants to deliver check. He can't here because of the knight. Rook c1. He threatens rook c7 check, not c8. We have king to f6 and now rook to c7. Bishop to d3. Now we have an option. Do we want to keep pieces on the board with the bishop to d1? But probably due to severe time trouble, Magnus decided it was best not to overcomplicate the position. So we have bishop captures on d3, knight captures on d3, and now rook captures on a7. Here Magnus decides it's time for a race. We have knight captures on f2, rook b7 going after the b6 pawn, g4, Mamedyarov starts pushing his past g-pawn, and rook b6. Capturing on b6, Carlsen is now also ready to start pushing his own past pawn. We have g3, now comes a4, and now a much needed move, knight to e4. The idea is after the rook goes back to guard the g1 square, you want to go knight c3 and attack the rook and the a4 pawn. Here we have rook to b1 by Magnus, but Mamedyarov doesn't go for this double attack. Instead, he goes for knight to c5. He has a different idea how to play this. With a5, Magnus now doesn't allow the capture, and now king e5. The king now has to join the g2 pawn if it's ever the g pawn if it's ever to be queened. With king to b2 by Magnus, and now king to f4. We have king to c3, preparing to push the knight away, g2, and here we have king to c4, knight to a6, and here king to b5, knight to b8, and even though you would like to push your pawn, you can't. Mamedyarov will just give up his knight and bring the king over here, push the pawn, and Magnus will have to trade the rook for a pawn, so that's not happening. Magnus went back, king to c4, and now we have a repetition. We have knight to a6, king to b5, knight b8, king to c4, knight to a6, and here Magnus, even though 30 seconds on the clock, or maybe some 40 seconds, I don't know, as it is, there's no increment, it's only, I don't know how you call it, really, I just forgot where you first play the move and then the time is given back to you, so not increment, but yeah, I will remember it probably after I make the video. Carlsen goes rook to g1, still tries to get Mamedyarov to make some sort of a mistake, but, you know, of course, it's very hard to make a mistake here. You just defend the passed pawn here. We have king to d4, rook to f2, and now, of course, you have to give up the rook. Rook captures, we have king captures, and now king to e5, going after the pawn here. Mamedyarov defends it, and now what do you play here? We have a6, just forcing the knight back, and here, again, like in the game, like in Magnus' game with Vishy Anand, we have a draw by insufficient material. So there we have it, really an insane game, really in the spirit of Mikhail Tal, really a barbaric approach by Magnus, really wanted to take Mamedyarov down, probably, I don't know, he probably didn't want to be on the defending side, but in the end, it's hard to say. I mean, even though it looked like he was on the defending side, it's hard to say who felt how in this game, as I didn't catch an interview. I don't even know if there was an interview, as they really played this game out for a very long time. But yeah, really do hope you enjoyed it, really in the spirit of Mikhail Tal. I will now show the standings after round 4. So for those of you who are still not interested in the standings, you know, just stop watching or skip a few seconds. Here are the standings. Jan Nepomniachtchi is still in, sorry, not that. Jan Nepomniachtchi is still in first place with 3.5 points, full point ahead of Magnus Carlsen. And then we have with 2.5 points, Carlsen and Wesley, followed by a series of 2-pointers. Fabiano Caruana, Maxim Vasile-Grave, Levon Aryan, Sergei Karakin, and then 1.5 pointers, Ding Liren, Anish Giri, Shahar Mamedyarov, Vishwanathan Anand, and so far in last place, Hikaru Nakamura. So it was not Mamedyarov's time to take Magnus down again and break his unbeatable streak, but you know, the tournament is still young, who knows what can happen. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I do hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank Frank Combs, Russell Wheelhouse, and Marco De Rochis for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, hopefully with some more interesting content, continuing this Zagreb Grand Chess Tour, checking up on your suggestions, and if I catch a breath, continuing the Capablanca saga. And once again, I apologize for those of you who already started watching the video and I had to take it down. Thank you all, I will see you soon, have an excellent rest of your day.